Prynawn da, croeso. Welcome to the Planning Regulatory and Licensing meeting of the 2nd of July 2025. Please note that today's meeting may be recorded. This recording will be broadcast on the authority's website and may be used for training purposes by the Democratic Services Department. All attendees will be in view of the camera, and by attending, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings being used as outlined above. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of the personal responsibility to declare any personal and prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government and Finance Act 1992 relating to the Council Tax, the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and Members' Code of Conduct. Note, members are reminded that they must identify the item number and subject matter that their interest relates to and signify the nature of the personal interest, and where members withdraw from a meeting as a consequence of the disclosure of a prejudicial interest, they must notify the chair when they leave. Thank you. Councillor Scott Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Just to declare an interest in item number 5, personal interest. I have family who live in the immediate vicinity of the property in question. However, seeking legal advice, I feel that I am in a position to be able to both vote and speak on the item.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. We'll go to the agenda. We are changing some of the items around, so we'll take as the first item P25/01559 Queen's Terrace, Carlton Terrace, Troydrew, CF484ER. And I will shortly hand you over to Gareth Davis, who will present the application to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. The application property is an inner terrace home located on the junction of Queen's Terrace and Angus Street. The property has modestly sized private outdoor space to the front and to the rear. Both areas are elevated, which reflects the topography of the area, which climbs westward into Angus Street. The application seeks planning permission to change the use of the property from a 5-bedroom residential property, use class C3, to a 5-bedroom house in multiple occupation, use class C4. The proposals do not involve any internal or external alterations to the property. In terms of planning history, in 2020, there was a planning application granted to convert the property into two-bedroomed self-contained flats, which was approved. Under consultation with our consultees, there is no objection to the proposed development, subject to conditions as requested by Environmental Health. In terms of publicity, 47 letters of objection have been submitted in response to the consultation exercise. The key themes and objections submitted are that HMOs can lead to overcrowding, putting strain on public infrastructure, and result in unsafe, unhygienic living conditions, that HMOs have high residency rates, which leads to increased disturbance, adversely impacting the quality of life for existing residents, increased traffic and parking demand. HMOs generate more waste, overloading local waste management systems and increasing littering, etc. as a result. That they are detrimental to the character of the area, devalue property, and adversely impact community and safety cohesion. There are also fire safety concerns. HMOs attract antisocial behaviour and crime, and negatively impact amenity and safety. The area already suffers with drug dealing, and this would make things worse. In an area with a high concentration of HMOs, granting a further licence could lead to over-provision, exacerbating negative impacts, and the applicant is not from the area and has no understanding of the impact of the proposal on the surrounding residents. Subsequent to that, last week, a petition containing 1,056 signatures was submitted on the 26th of June, opposing the development. It did not raise any issues that are not addressed in the original report. Subsequent to the closure of the public consultation exercise, one additional objection has been received. The issues raised are also covered by the report, though the objector also references the property proving a nuisance, having operated as an Airbnb for some time, and the ability of the local police to respond to complaints, and the applicant claiming that the house being used for asylum seekers who might not drive does not address the highway problems. There are a number of other matters that were raised that are not strictly planning considerations. Who manages the HMO or where they are based is not a planning consideration. Breaches of fire safety regulations are a matter for fire safety officers. Improper waste management or poor living conditions would fall under the governance of environmental health in any event, and the granting of HMO licences is independent of any planning decision that will be made here today. Property devaluation is not a planning consideration, and concern over the potential future operators of properties is also not a consideration. In terms of planning policy, you will note from the report that in principle the property lies within settlement limits and subject to it being the proposal being compliant with other policies within the local development plan, the proposed development could prove acceptable. I would stress there are no external works proposed to the property in question. And whilst properties occupied by non-family households have the potential to change the character of the area or the community cohesion, it is not evident that allowing this development would result in an over-concentration of HMOs in the area. In terms of impacts on residential amenity, it is considered the proposed development would not be significantly different from the existing claimed use as a 5-bedroom dwelling. Whilst the development might have the potential to deliver more noise than the existing might, this would not be considered so significant that it would justify a refusal of planning permission. Noise and antisocial behaviour on the part of residents, should it occur, is a matter for the management company, or should it be to a level where there's a statutory nuisance occurs to environmental health, or if it's criminal, to the police. It's important to remember that such disturbances could occur as easily and as frequently in any family home. Also, planning controls focus on the use of the building and not the end user. The proposal would not result in any more overlooking or loss of privacy than exists at present. The situation with bins and recycling would remain as at present, and should members resolve to approve the proposed development, then ecological enhancement can be delivered through the appropriately worded planning condition. Parking requirements for the proposed development, we are advised, would be the same as they are for a 5-bedroom house. No objection has been raised by the Head of Engineering and Highways, and approval subject to conditions is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much.
Just got a couple of slides just to go through, if you like.
Yes, thank you.
So the application site is set out with the red outline. As you can see, it sits in a corner of the street. The following slide just gives you a bit more context of the area in a fairly sort of built-up environment. So this slide sets out the existing and proposed floor plans. Is this the same?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So the number of bedrooms in this instance is not changing, but there are some internal works to accommodate the use. And then this is the property as we see it in the street. There is some scope for some street parking in the area, but
Excuse me.
These are photos
Can you
that would
keep the disturbance to a minimum, please?
These are photos taken by the case officer at the time, so this is how it was at that time. I think that's...
Excuse me, if I get comments from the public gallery and it interrupts the presentation, you will be asked to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's the slides anyway.
Thank you. I'll now go to speaking, and I believe Councillor Gareth Lewis wishes to address the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On behalf of residents I represent, I want to object to this planning application, a proposed change of use from a 5-bedroom residential property to a house in multiple occupation at number 9 Queen's Terrace, Troedrew. My objection is based on the following considerations. Firstly, the impact on character and community cohesion of the community. The streets and surrounding area of Queen's Terrace are predominantly occupied by long-term single-family households. The introduction of a 5-bedroom HMO creates a high turnover, multi-occupant rental property, risking a negative alteration to the character of the area. Planning policy in Wales state that good placemaking should promote cohesive communities, not disrupt them. The potential increase in transient residents could potentially undermine neighbour relationships and a sense of local identity, especially within a close-knit community such as Troedrew. Secondly, I must stress the negative implications of parking and highway safety. Although the property has 1 garage, it lacks sufficient off-street parking for 5 separate adults, all of whom could potentially own a vehicle. As shown in the numerous objections from residents, we know the street suffers from significant on-street parking pressures, particularly in the evenings and on weekends. This proposal would undoubtedly exacerbate congestion along Carlton Terrace and Angus Street, which are narrow and already strained. Road traffic accidents have occurred along Carlton Terrace in recent years, and therefore importance should be given to technical policy guidance which stresses the importance of safe and efficient access. This proposal undermines both. And whilst the Highways Department has raised no objections, residents here today who have day-to-day experience of the congestion strongly disagree with the assumption that there is no adverse impact. In addition, a bus park that needs to safely assist hundreds of pupils to the nearby secondary school is within 100 metres of the subject property. Thirdly, the impact on residential amenity. A single family dwelling will typically generate less coming and goings, less noise and less cumulative activity than a 5-bedroom HMO with unrelated adults living independently. These multiple occupiers will likely operate different work hours, have separate visitors and use facilities around the clock. This risks significantly harming the amenity currently enjoyed by neighbours through increased noise and late-night disturbances. Residents, many of whom are elderly or vulnerable and live at the nearby Haven Close, a community living scheme, have expressed genuine fear about what this change may bring. This is not speculation. There is genuinely already worry that the area has begun to experience increasing levels of antisocial behaviour, including drug-related activity, and local people feel this proposal could make it worse. Planning policy emphasises the need to create safe, cohesive and inclusive communities, and approving this application would do the opposite. It would introduce a form of housing that by nature brings a greater risk of conflict, noise complaints and harm to residential amenity. Fourthly, concerns about the cumulative impact and the risk of overdevelopment. Whilst I acknowledge that 1 HMO might not constitute a harmful concentration, this must be seen in the context of existing pressures on local infrastructure. The addition of HMO compounds this, particularly if poorly managed. If this application is approved, it could set a precedent for further similar conversions, which accelerates the change in the area's character. 47 in total residents have submitted written objections, and a petition of over 1,000 signatories has been submitted. This does reflect genuine and widespread concern. This proposal threatens community cohesion, worsens local parking and congestion, and diminishes residential amenity. For these reasons, and in the interest of the local community, I urge the committee to refuse this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Councillor Brian Carter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Chair, Council members, officers and community members. For those who don't know me, I'm Councillor Brent Carter, and I've been an elected member in the Plymouth Ward, which I've been proud and privileged for the last 17 years. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today on their behalf. There's many objectors to this application form to turn this property into a 5-bedroom HMO. Residents have shared concerns about the proposed HMO in our community. Whilst there is an understanding that there is a need for varied housing options, there's a genuine concern that this proposal presents significant risks. HMOs often bring an increase in the number of residents per property, resulting in more traffic, parking demand and congestion in an area that is already stretched. Many of the streets in the ward were designed for single-family homes, not high-density living. Limited parking already in the area leads to illegally, poorly parked cars, blocked pavements and endangerment of pedestrians. This proposal, as my colleague Councillor Lewis have said, is close to Avontaff School and indeed adjacent to the bus car park, which already faces issues with the safety of children on their way to and from school because of this high-density parking and traffic situation. The area is historically an area for families, long-term residents and people who value strong community ties. Converting homes into HMOs fundamentally changes the dynamic. With frequent change in resident, it becomes harder to build that sense of community that we truly cherish. HMOs have seen an impact on increased complaints related to noise, criminal activity, waste management issues and even vandalism. There's no other way of dealing with these issues apart from contacting the police. Without dedicated property managers who are readily available and engaged, these problems will fall to the surrounding neighbours to address. This leaves residents out on their own trying to manage this issue. Planning officers will state that this is a matter for the police. However, we are currently facing serious issues with antisocial behaviour, drug dealing, drug taking in open daylight, and the police present isn't there. Our packed priorities are there, these very issues which are ongoing with no sign of cessation. I know other members here will agree that properly managed and smaller housing projects that support individuals to regain independence and have planned resettlement and community integration is key. These private owners are out for one thing, and that's making money. These owners are making money from people's vulnerabilities and offer no support for those who live there. This is morally wrong, and we need to protect those who have become homeless and need additional support. Adjoining properties were sent a letter and site notices were displayed. However, there was no direct community engagement by the developers to any residents to address any concerns. Building relationships and consulting with the wider community over this proposal is key, as they are the ones who will be directly affected by the proposed change of use. There have been 47 letters of objections raised to this application for the community, and indeed I might add a comprehensive 1,056 signed petition. That is a strong voice from the community stating they do not want this development which cannot be ignored by elected members. I would like to make it clear that I'm sure we all fully support small-scale community initiatives that aim to provide meaningful support to those in need and work in partnership with communities. We will continue to stand by the principle of genuine social partnership. There is a shared understanding that we must look at this application on its own merits and its determination based on planning grounds with reference to the LDP policies. However, it is equally important to ensure that any company investing in Merthyr Tydfil is also a company that will invest back into the community. It would be remiss of me not to raise such an important issue as part of this application. Again, we appreciate that this is not a planning consideration, but it should be a consideration. We strongly believe that due diligence is needed on any company or developer planning to house the most vulnerable individuals in our community. We'd like to state that we're not being biased or making any personal attacks towards any developers or potential occupiers. However, as ward councillors and advocates for the residents, we have a duty to be vigilant and know what developers are operating in our communities to ensure that our most vulnerable are protected and not exploited for profit. We also have a duty to ensure that the residents living in the area are not negatively affected by any developments. Therefore, I urge all members here tonight to vote to refuse this application for the reasons stated and laid out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Have we got any closing comments from officers? No. I'll take questions from the committee. Councillor Scott Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one. Obviously, I'm aware that an objector did come forward. Can I have the reasons why the objector hasn't had the opportunity to voice the concerns of the residents?
Yeah, I can come in there, Councillor. So there was an error within the planning department, which I can only apologise for, that in terms of communicating the process for registering to speak, the objector of the individual that registered to speak actually came in outside of the publicity exercise deadline. However, it was still taken into consideration in the report.
Councillor Clive Jones.
Could I ask, Chair, if the representatives of the firm Avalon Homes Limited, are they going to be given an opportunity to put their case? Because I've got a few questions of clarification to that.
The applicant didn't register to speak this evening.
Right. Oh, well. That tells you everything, I suppose. Well, I'll start off with questions then. This was given permission in 2021, 1st of June 21, for 2 self-contained flats. Were they ever enacted?
As far as I'm aware, that hasn't been implemented.
And was the property then ever used for any other purpose during the last 5 years?
Our understanding is, as it was before, a 5-bedroom house still. That's what the description for the application's for.
With a family living there? Don't know.
I can't tell you who lives in it, no.
On page 35, at the bottom of the page, and it's under the heading Character and Appearance, second paragraph, I'll read it out. It says it is appreciated that properties occupied by non-family households have the potential to change the character of an area, i.e. damage social cohesion with higher levels of transient residence. However, it's not evident that the proposed 5-bedroom HMO along Carlton Terrace will lead to an over-concentration of HMOs. Well, my understanding, this is the first application in that area. But the operative word in there is transient residence. In my view, Chair, we are talking about lodging houses, because I've got an email which I received in the last few days from one of the senior housing officers, because I wanted to know whether they have rights to refer people who are homeless into these units. And I was told they do. So it's been accepted by housing staff that this is temporary accommodation, so they will be transient residents. And do you accept as planners that there is a distinct difference to having a family there to having, in effect, 5 tenants who will constantly be changing?
The reference to transient and how that can affect the sort of the character of the area is in relation to things like, for instance, where you've got a lot of student accommodation where students come and go. They might be there for a year, and during summer periods where they all go back home, so it's not necessarily always their sort of main residence. Where you've got that situation, like for instance in Cardiff, Cathays Terrace, you get a lot of students go back home in the summer, and then those areas are kind of left with not many people around. The shops and services can be affected and things like that. In this instance, we've only got one property, as far as I'm aware, in this immediate vicinity, which is a HMO. I don't think that leads in itself to a change in the character. Yes, you know, there would be 5 individuals, which is different to a traditional household, but the way it would be used and operate is, in our view, no different really to a normal residential property, albeit, you know, the occupants might change over time in much the same as a rented property.
Well, Chair, we'll have to disagree to agree on that one, because it definitely will change the character of the area. What we don't know as well, particularly if Avalon Homes Limited have decided not to send somebody here so we can ask them questions, is the type of tenants they're going to put there. Now, if they've sat down with you and your case officer, have they given you any indication of the type of tenants that they propose placing there?
We haven't had that information. I think, as covered in the presentations, that wouldn't be a material planning consideration.
I understand that,
case, yeah.
but you've got no idea the type of tenants that they propose put in there. For example, as well, am I right in saying, if this is approved and the 5 tenants are put there, there's no reason why they can't bring a partner there, so there'll be more than 5 individuals living there, unless Avalon Homes Limited have stated specifically in the agreement that it's only one individual can use the premises.
I think from a planning perspective, the description is for a 5-bedroom HMO. I think as it is for 5 people or more, it would then be subject to the licensing procedure and environmental health. So if there were additional residents and creating overcrowding issues, that could be looked at through that process.
So somebody somewhere in the authority will have to monitor that to ensure that that's not happening.
Again, if it's causing an issue from an environmental health point of view, and it was a breach of their licence, because this property would require a licence for a HMO of this scale. Right.
Another question, which I can't ask Avalon Homes Limited because they're not here, is the $164,000 question is, how will this property be managed if planning approval is given? St Leonard's Ringwood is, I think, a few hundred miles away from here. So how are they experienced in this field? Have they got a few hundred properties? Have they got management staff, maintenance? You know, if things kick off in these type of places, it's usually on a Friday night, Saturday on a Sunday, and you know, the people that need to be there are miles away or not on duty. So did they give you any indication how are they going to manage the property?
So we haven't had that information from the applicant. Again, I sort of going to respond with an answer that might not be that palatable, but the management would be a matter for environmental health, potentially police.
And do you know whether they've managed other properties or this is a one-off that they've decided to purchase?
We haven't had that information.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Anna Williams-Price.
Thank you. Appreciating your point regarding the level of HMOs currently in the area, but with regards to over-concentration, to what extent is the council able to measure the number of Airbnbs, etc., that may be being used by multiple occupants, but would not necessarily require planning permission or environmental health licensing?
We're in the process of gathering that information to sort of try and ascertain where there are HMOs that wouldn't have gone through the planning process, and then other sort of non-standard residential issues such Airbnb. We are in the process with the housing department and with environmental health of collecting all that data to give us a fuller picture of where all these uses are.
Thank you. But with regards to this application, as that is currently in process, you wouldn't have been able to use that information to feed into this application. Is that fair?
Not the full information that we hope to have in the coming months.
Thank you.
Councillor Declan Sam.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to take you to page 6 of 9 of the specific report on this agenda item, and it's in regards to residential amenity. First, second, third paragraph, and it's the second sentence. It goes, however, since no additional bedrooms will be provided as a result of this proposal, the management of waste would likely have a similar arrangement to existing property, i.e. waste bins, area provided at the rear of the property and then placed at the front of the property on the pavement once a week in readiness for collection. Indeed, a property can already be occupied by 5 individuals or families of a larger number without the need for planning permission. It should also be noted that no concerns or objections have been raised by the Environmental Health section in this respect. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, and I don't think you are, but there's been some major changes which were brought in by Welsh Government on the 20th of June 2025, and it's the Welsh Government Collections Blueprint 2025. And at 3.5 of that report, and it's specific in regards to flats and houses of multiple occupation, it says, to achieve success in increasing recycling in flats, it is recommended that local authorities use a tailored and site-specific approach, usually determined via site-specific surveys and engagement with stakeholders such as caretakers and landlords. Wherever feasible, buildings containing flats and houses converted into flats should receive the same curbside collection service as other households. Many of the principles of a curbside collection service, where each individual household has their own set of recycling containers, also apply to communal waste collections. So I think that makes it clear that there's 5 households proposed to go in here. That's 5 sets of bins for everything. So that's bins for cans, plastics, you name it, everything there is. So I don't believe you've taken that into consideration, is that right? And I believe because this was brought in before today's date, which is the 20th of June 2025, I think that is relevant to this application.
I'm not aware of a specific requirement for them to have 5 wheelie bins and all the other sort of containers and features for individuals within the property. From a planning point of view, if there was a requirement for additional space to accommodate those things within the grounds of the property, then, in this instance, they've got a garden area where they could store that, and if need be, we could consider putting a condition on, for the provision of a, details of that to be agreed. But ordinarily, this would be a property that could be occupied by 5 people. They could be 5 professionals living together as a single household, which wouldn't require planning permission, and it's against that we have to judge the impacts of the development.
I don't think you've got what I said, David. I think because there's going to be 5 households here, every household needs to have a container for cans and plastics, so that's 5 containers. Containers for cardboard, that's another 5, that's 10. They'd have, I can't remember how many there'd be, so you're likely 15 or 20 are going to be put at the front of the property. So I just don't think that's been taken into consideration. I know this is new. I know it was brought in the 20th of June, but it's, I think that is relevant in this case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Councillor Scott Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just sort of piggybacking on Anna's question there now. Has any thought been put into active Airbnbs in the immediate vicinity and how Harding and HMO or one's actually being developed in that case within less than 20 metres of at least one that we do know about would have an impact on that, given that Airbnbs often have several visitors and cars at any one time?
As Craig indicated earlier, we're still gathering the full data on that. But it's not been brought to our attention that there is or at least it's not obvious that there's a high concentration of HMOs and other types of.
Right, thank you for that. Based on the map presented, and pretty much almost from the angle that the photo is taken there, there's at least an HMO within not even 10 metres of that, not an HMO, an Airbnb within 10 metres of that, and possibly one being developed now, opposite sides of a hill. So there's going to be an overconcentration already in place there, and this HMO is just going to add chaos to it.
Thank you. Councillor Michelle Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Have we got a map of what the inside of this house looks like? I'm wondering if we can have an understanding of the size of the bedrooms, how many bathrooms are there, etc. Thanks.
Is it come up? Is it updated on there?
Not yet. Oh, lovely, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Only a brief look, okay. Yeah, so you can see the existing and proposed floor plans, which are essentially the ground floor, I believe, is on the left, the first floor on the right. So that's not changing. That's essentially the same setup as it would be for the current use of the property.
This is ground floor. This first floor. There's one little kitchen.
Are there any more questions? No. Sorry, Councillor John Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, as been stated, the applicant is not here. Do we know if Avalon Homes have got in any other properties in our county borough?
We don't know that.
We don't. Right, okay. Thanks, Craig. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll now go to comments. Councillor Anna Williams-Price.
Thank you. Firstly, Chair, I'll just give thanks to rearranging the agenda, and just to clarify, I do need to leave the meeting once this item is concluded. Thank you. So I appreciate the officer's report and note the absence of objections from statutory consultees. I also note the 47 letters of objection and the many residents, over 1,000, that have taken the time to register their concerns via petition. These raise genuine and material planning concerns that we as committee must take seriously. The most pressing issue in this case is parking and highway safety. While the report indicates that the proposal is technically compliant on paper, it is essential that we consider the practical reality on the ground. And in this area and throughout Troederoo, as ward councillor, parking and road safety is raised time and time again with me, and I've been in ongoing conversations with the road safety officer on this issue. So there does seem to be a disconnect between highways matters as represented in this report compared to the reality that residents and myself, Brent and Gareth, as ward councillors are familiar with. Queen's Terrace and the surrounding streets are already under considerable parking pressure, particularly because the property lies very close to the main drop-off and collection point for Avon Taff, and at school run times congestion is acute. Pavements are routinely blocked, with sections narrowed to space for one car to pass only, which backs up traffic along the road. Pedestrian safety, especially for children and vulnerable road users, is compromised. Adding a class of use that typically generates higher levels of vehicle ownership and movement risks exacerbating these problems significantly. And unlike a single family dwelling, a 5-bedroom HMO occupied by unrelated individuals is more likely to result in multiple cars, competing for limited on-street spaces that are already in short supply. This is a predictable impact that will fall on existing residents daily. I'm also concerned that as a council, we do not have the full sense of the impact of Airbnbs within the area, As most would not need planning permission, we are limited in our ability to record where they are located. However, a recent search on the Airbnb website, looking at the first week of the summer holidays, showed approximately 20 properties available to let in Troederew, 3 of which are situated in streets in the immediate vicinity of this property. The cumulative pressures from increased parking demand at peak hours, together with the established difficulties caused by school traffic, will make an already difficult situation worse, and this raises legitimate questions about highway safety, which are material planning considerations in both national and local policy planning. While other matters such as noise, waste and the erosion of the area's family character remain relevant, I believe it is the parking and highways impact, particularly in this sensitive location near the school, that decisively tips the balance against this proposal. And to conclude, I do not consider this change of use to be appropriate or proportionate to the needs of the community and will be voting to refuse the application.
Thank you. Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, Chair. This particular application is one of an increasing number of HMOs that have been either received planning approval or refused throughout the county borough. I mean, I don't think anyone can argue against the fact that you plant a HMO in the middle of an area where it's surrounded by families. I've no doubt many of whom have lived there for many, many years, and you cannot say that there'll be no disruption to the community, because the fact that you'll put, in this case, at least 5 tenants there would mean that you've changed what was in that property years before. I completely understand why the community are aggrieved at this planning application, particularly where there's a petition of over 1,047 letters of objection. It shows what the community's views are on this planning application. I am really disappointed that no one appears to have the guts from this company to be present this evening to hear what's the discussions and the debate and the comments, and to avail themselves of being asked particular questions. There is no way on earth that I will be supporting this application, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Scott Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. I know it's already been alluded to that obviously the high school is in very close proximity to where this proposed HMO is, but just to add some context to how severely close it is, it's 0.2 miles to the nearest gate to an entrance for the school, and even then 0.3 miles to the main gate that remains open to the public post obviously the school being in situ. So that raises a lot of concerns for me, because at least with several applications we've had previously in relation to HMOs, we've had some moderate bit of information that provides us with who may or may not be residing in that. With this application we've had absolutely zero, and I can't risk that for the residents, so I'm absolutely against this.
Thank you. Have we got any more comments? No. Just for the thing to go forward, I need somebody to propose the report. Yep, thank you. And second? Thank you very much. Do you need... Yeah, I'll now take it to the vote.
Councillor Preston, are you for, against, or
against?
Abstaining? Against, thank you.
Against.
8, 9. Julian, everyone's voted, and that's
refused. Yeah.
Refused.
Yeah, and that's refused.
To explain to them.
Right. Can you explain?
Yeah. Right. That application has been refused. So what I need members to do now, because obviously you have voted contrary to the officer's recommendation, is we need to agree the reasons for refusal. once we've agreed those reasons for refusal, we will vote on them, and then just to see if everyone agrees with those reasons for refusal. So if you could let me know the reasons for refusal.
Thanks. Chair, if I could propose that the reason for refusal is for parking and highways impact.
Subject to the relevant policy.
Yeah, sorry, as related to the relevant local and national planning policy. Thank you.
Okay. Is anyone suggesting a further reason for refusal, or are we just going with one reason?
Councillor Scott Thomas.
Yeah, Chair, I was just going to add pretty much more meat to the bone on what Anna said. Just to say that it's obviously the unsatisfactory impact on highway safety contrary to policy SW11 of the LDP. That's what I would probably go with.
Councillor Preston, do you have anything to say in relation to the reasons for refusal?
Because of the how near it is to the local school.
So, in relation to what Councillor Preston has said, are we going to have that as a second reason for refusal, or do we consider that the first reason for refusal, which is highways and parking, is sufficient? We have to remember, of course, that they have to be planning reasons for refusal.
Chair, I would suggest, if Councillor Preston is willing, if we could maintain the message that Councillor Thomas as confirmed, but obviously with recognition that the reason for the committee's concerns are formed by the proximity of the school. I think that's covered in what Councillor Thomas is already proposing, if that's okay, Councillor Preston.
Yes.
Okay, so we have one reason for refusal, which is on parking and highway safety, contrary to policy SW11. So are we happy now to take that to the vote, or do you have...
Sorry, Councillor Jones, you just popped up.
Yes, all right. Obviously, it's been mentioned, and it's been mentioned in the report, and it's been mentioned here by members. In my view, we should add to that about the change of the character of the area and the community cohesion. I mean, it's quite evident that that's going to happen.
Two reasons for refusal. Parking and highway safety and community cohesion. Are all councillors happy that those are the two reasons for refusal? We're not looking for any further one. Okay. So if we could take that to the vote then. So if you vote yes, that will be that those are the two reasons that the application be refused. Councillor Preston, are you for, against or abstaining?
Against.
Okay. That's carried, Chair. So those are the reasons for refusal. Obviously, the applicant may now appeal that decision via PEDU. So what I would ask is, ordinarily it would fall to the ward councillor should the application be appealed to write the statement on behalf of the council, because obviously the officers can't, because their recommendation was for approval.
Yes, I understand. Noted. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? Can I just have clarity on how long the applicant would have to appeal? Because I've looked online, it says 12 weeks for smaller applications and up to 6 months for larger ones.
I'll leave one of the planning officers to answer that.
I believe in this case it would be 6 months. I think the 12 weeks is usually for like householder applications, extensions and things like that. But the decision that goes out provides the guidance on that for the applicant, setting out the timescales.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, Yeah, Councillor Clive Jones, you...
Yeah, I just want to clarify from the solicitor. In previous occasions, we've come back to another planning committee to absolutely confirm the objections from us. So it's a formal report.
Yeah,
That's not going to happen, though, is it?
No, and it didn't happen at the last planning committee either,
Oh,
Chair. Sorry, Councillor Jones. What the Constitution actually says is where Planning and Regulatory and Licence Committee is minded to approve or refuse a planning application contrary to the recommendation of the Director of Neighbourhood Services, agreement shall be reached at the meeting on the planning reasons for that decision, and they shall be fully minuted by the clerk to the committee. So the reasons have been given, right. We've agreed what they are. Planning will now issue either tomorrow or the day after the refusal, and it will go through the appeals process, so should the applicant want to follow that.
Constitution, Chair, as it applies to planning, has been part and parcel of changes to what we used to do.
Yes, and that would have gone through last July, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll give the public gallery a chance to leave if they wish.
Councillor Tubby. Sorry, Councillor Tubby. Can we deal with that outside of the meeting?
Yeah. Right. Can we move on, please? Right, we'll go to agenda item P240285, Ysgol Santos Tydfil, Pantheon Road, Penyard, Tydfil, CF47OHU. I believe, David, you taking this?
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the construction of a new Welsh-speaking preschool nursery building, which will be located within the grounds of the Ysgol Santos Tydfil, situated on an area of vacant grassland adjacent to the main entrance into the school. The building itself would be single-storey and would accommodate a small play area to the front. The nursery would provide Flying Start childcare for children up to 3 years old and would accommodate around 24 children. No objection to the proposed development has been raised by the consultees. However, as a result of the publicity exercise, 4 letters of objection were received, of which 2 were received from the same resident. A summary of the concerns raised is set out in the report, which generally relate to highway safety and parking issues in and around the school grounds. The proposed development would be appropriately located within the settlement limits and is adjacent to an existing school. The development would provide additional childcare support and would contribute to the provision of Welsh-speaking education. Therefore, the principle of the development is acceptable. The general modern design of the development is deemed to be acceptable and would not give rise to unacceptable impacts on the character or visual amenity of the surrounding area. Additionally, the siting of the building would be appropriately located away from neighbouring residents and would not give rise to any adverse impacts on residential amenity. The site is considered to be of low ecological value and a suitable landscaping scheme has been provided with ecological enhancements to provide an overall net benefit to biodiversity. In regards to the parking and access arrangements, it's noted that a transport assessment was submitted in support. The main area used for visitor parking during pick-up and drop-off times is intended to be the public oval car park, which is situated within walking distance from the school. It was indicated in the report that the car park has approximately 70 parking spaces, with a typical occupation of 19% of it being used during the morning and about 74% of it being used in the afternoon. This indicates that there's capacity to accommodate the parking requirements for the nursery, both in terms of visitors and staff. In this regard, it's noted that the Head of Engineering and Highways has not highlighted any highway safety or parking concerns. For the reasons set out in the report, it's recommended that the application be granted planning permission subject to the conditions set out on page 16 to 18. Just to go through some of the slides. That's come up. Okay. So the area that's sort of hatched in red, this is the location of the proposed building. The main entrance sits just to the south of that, and then as you come in, you've got the traffic circulation and parking within the grounds of the school. So that just gives you a bit more context. So it's this grassed area just in the corner of the site. The public car park I was referring to is further up the road, just in the top corner. This is the plan setting out the general layout of the development. So the access, as I said, is just to the south. We've got a building sort of positioned fairly central within the site, and then the blue and green areas are the sort of playground areas serving the nursery, which will all be fenced off as well. This is the general small-scale nature of the building with a single-pitch roof, of a fairly modern design. So this is a view of the site, sort of situated toward. There's like a bit of a roundabout, which is this bit here. So that's just situated at the head of the entrance into the site. So you can see relatively to the side, the site is much lower down than the neighbouring houses. You've got a bit of an embankment with vegetation on there, which would remain as part of the proposal. And then just looking across the site towards the access, you can see the housing estate nearby, and the access is coming in on the side. But generally, the site is largely vacant of much, really, just mostly grassland. I know parking and access is probably the biggest concern that's been raised. I understand that there are issues in the area, particularly with people parking in, on double yellow lines. That's not something we can control within planning, but as you can see, there's a zebra crossing at the entrance to the school. There are sort of highway restrictions in the area to try and manage some of the parking issues. I should point out as well that the entrance into the school is essentially locked, so there's no vehicular access. That I think that there's a small period of time between 8 and 8:30 where, if you've got the breakfast clubs, staff and some of the parents can use a drop-off area there. But outside of that, it's all reliant to off-site parking. And as I mentioned earlier, just further up the road, I think it's within 200 metres of the school, so it's not too far. You've got a fairly, good size public car park. There are pedestrian links and zebra crossings linking this then to the school. Okay, thank you, Chair. That's everything.
Thanks very much. I will now go to the public speaking element of it. I believe in support of the application, we have Chris Evans and Alan Roberts. You've got 5 minutes between you to give you a speech. I'll let you introduce yourself, and then I'll give you a 30-second warning when you're coming up into the 5 minutes if you need it. But decide between you two of you which one is going to take the bulk of the time. But yeah, if you go ahead now, please.
Is this? Yes, recording. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Dave pretty much covered all the points we had written down, so there's not much for me to say. So, yeah, so Welsh Medium Flying Start, it's been proposed to meet the shortage in the area at the moment. A study found that there's a lack of childcare provision in the area, and it was chosen within the grounds of the Welsh Medium School to fit with the Welsh Education Strategic Plan. The reason we put it in the grounds of Welsh School is it provides a wraparound service. So any child which goes to the nursery is able to to follow into the school at later years. It provides them a much more of a rounded education need, gets them more familiar with the school site, the staff, and yeah, that's what it's there for. So it's the Welsh Government which are asking for it, and we're trying to comply with that requirement. Going on to the parking, I'll hand over to my colleague Alan Roberts, and he knows all the figures. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Pnawn da. Yeah, as David said about the oval car park, it was be open to use the oval car park for the parking of for the Flying Start. We done two surveys on 3 separate days for the car park, between 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 and 2 o'clock till 6 in the afternoon. And the biggest percentage in the morning was 19%, biggest percentage in the afternoon was 74%. So it just shows that the car park has got a capacity to take further cars. Because it's got 70 spaces and 6 disabled car park spaces. We will encourage parents as well to use the car park every day, so we'll open to that. We also will be zebra crossings as well from the Oval car park to across Pontyffin Road, also then a zebra crossing then across then to West on Stidville. So there's also pedestrian fences and across leading from the car park to basically to the school really. So I think pedestrian access is quite safe from the car park to the school. So yeah, I think we covered most things really in terms of.
I think one thing to consider is we do understand and appreciate that the traffic is an issue at the moment, and fortunately with the Flying Start they operate at separate times to the school. So what we will do, the transport survey has highlighted the peak times of traffic in that area. I think it's from 8 to 8:15, 8:15 to 8:30. So we're in negotiations with the Flying Start at the moment to stagger the times that they operate. That way they can avoid the peak times of the traffic for the school. So I think, yeah, we don't want to exacerbate the issues that are there at the moment, and hopefully not increase it. So yeah, that's something else which is under consideration.
Yeah, I think we covered everything.
Any questions?
Yes, so I'll take questions from the committee for clarity. Councillor Michelle Jones.
Just a quick one. How many pupils would be in the Flying Start? I'm not sure if it's in the report. I can't see it. Sorry if it is.
Maximum 24 pupils, and that's at the start much less than that, but we probably build up to 24 pupils maximum and 6 members of staff.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Scott Thomas.
Diolch. Diolch am eich cynrychiolaeth. Thank you for your representation. Can we just confirm that the new building will aesthetically marry up to the existing building and look similar to encourage familiarity through the growth and development of obviously the children taking part in Flying Start, then to go into obviously Santa Stidville main school?
Correct, yeah. So the designers on board have designed it to be familiar with the existing school site. That way when the children get older, they progress, they're going to know that they go into that school. So we try to keep them all in one setting. They become familiar with the area, familiar with the staff, and it sort of encourages, I don't want to say encourage, but the goal is to make them learn Welsh. I can't speak Welsh myself, but it's to encourage that and to make it as easy as possible.
It's never too late to learn. And yeah, it was just looking at that elevation image, but it sort of, obviously as someone who's sort of frequent with the school, then it sort of resonated with me that it looked very similar. I just wanted the confirmation that it does sort of marry up, and looking at it does, and it looks like to be a fantastic facility.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Councillor John Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. It's regard to the oval car park, it is. Are you going to put any stipulations to parents that they've got to use that car park Because as we know, if it's raining or whatever, they want to park as close to that school as possible. I'm the local ward councillor and I get it every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You know, we've emailed, you know, we've had enforcement up there. Once the fairer see the enforcement, they use the car park, they're gone. But are you going to stipulate that they've got to use that car park?
Yeah, so we've been speaking of the Flying Start, and part of the arrangements are that all new parents, which are going to attend the Flying Start, must use the Oval car park. It's not something that we unfortunately can't enforce, but what we will ask is that the highways vehicle visits, if possible, and we just got to hope that they are going to stick to it. I know that we've done one in Dowlice a couple of years ago, and all the Flying Start staff do use the car park made available. So yeah, it is going to be a stipulation. Whether it can be enforced, I don't know. I don't know if I should have said that. But.
Yeah, thanks for that. Just one further question then. Have the school head and governors been consulted to use like a drive-in and drop-off? Like we've done down in Toyne School, we had the same issues down there with parking. We've reconfigured it in Toyne School and it's absolutely fantastic. They drive in, drop-off point and back out. Have that been considered at all?
At the moment, the only people that come back and visit Winter School are blue badge holders. So, I think we just need to try to use like the Oval car park really as a car park for the Winter's Flying Start.
So you haven't looked at the options then of putting a drop-off point inside the school, because you've got the roundabout there. I know the big buses go in, and when they're coming out, the congestion then on Baden Terrace is, well, it's phenomenal. Yeah. It's gridlock, basically.
I appreciate that. So we have been in talks with the school, with the head teacher, with his deputy head teacher as well, about the new development. Parking has been discussed, but coming into the school is something that they are not comfortable with. So we have it on a lot of issues with our schools at the moment. Vehicles driving around in the school setting pose a risk to the pupils. So we try not to have, you see a lot of schools in the area where they don't allow vehicles to come in at, say, 8:45 to 9 AM, because that's when lots of pupils are walking around that area. I'm not 100% sure what the turning circle is for in Ysgol Sanes Tydfil. I know it's for buses. The buses drop off there at the moment, and I know there's parking off there as well. But I suppose it is something we could speak to with the head and see if something could be done. But I suppose it's quite a pinch point coming out of that school, isn't there? So, yeah.
Okay. Can we take that up in normal questions?
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Have I got any other comments from the planning officers over anything that's been raised? No?
Just to come in quickly on that point, sorry, Councillor Thomas, I think there is a traffic management plan condition as part of the recommendation, so I think that sort of detail on those particular issues could be looked at through the preparation of that plan.
Right, we'll now go to questions from committee members as normal.
Questions, Chair?
No, okay. Sorry?
Councillor John Thomas.
Sorry, Councillor John Thomas.
Yeah, if I take you to page 11 and fourth paragraph down, it says, whilst the nursery will be run separately to the school, an understanding of the current levels of traffic movements and parking availability is needed to establish if the proposed development would result in any significant detriment in terms of highway safety and parking availability. With this preschool or Flying Start, will they be starting a different time to the junior school or the infant school?
Yeah, I think that's something the applicant did cover in their in their speech. Then that the Flying Start will start at different times at the school.
Right. Okay.
Councillor Scott Thomas.
Sorry, piggybacking on Councillor John Thomas's question, but there then is if they are looking to start at obviously alternate times to the main school, obviously we'd assume then that everybody who's attending the main school is going to be actively in the school when this flying start provision is obviously opening their doors. Why couldn't we then utilise a drop-off point within the school? Because it's not going to have any impact on the actual schoolgoers then themselves.
Again, I think that's something that just be covered in the traffic management plan's condition. That sort of level of detail as to how it's going to work day to day. We'll be covered through that.
I think it's worth considering.
Any further questions? No. I'll go to comments. Councillor John Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm very, very surprised that the Highways haven't come up with any objections to this, really. Obviously, because, like I've stated earlier, I've been a councillor 8 years. Every couple of weeks, we get phone calls for parking issues, etc., etc. Enforcement have been up there, police have been there, people have had the tickets, etc. At this moment in time, we've got a pilot scheme going on down at Caerdraw with the ANPR cameras. Once that is up and running, Yscol Santes Tydfil will be the next to have these looked at and installed purely for the residents of Gelli Dowel, because the parking is horrendous in there. People just don't care. They park it over people's drives, everything. They can't get out for work. We've got a place at the bottom of the estate where if they need an ambulance, it's a residential home type. If they need an ambulance, they won't get through. Because I've been there on school times, it's absolutely horrendous, really. So, you know, taking all this into consideration, I think Active Travel should have at least come along and helped us on this. Like, the residents are not against the build itself, but it's the actual parking in the estate, which is, it's got to be looked at. Can I just suggest that the planners or anybody, Highways, go down to Toynrodin School, see exactly what's been done down there, to see if it can be replicated up at Santes Tydfil to allow people to come in, drop off and out. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Michelle Jones.
Yeah, just coming back on the comments that Councillor Thomas has just made, I think parents need to take responsibility for their actions here. The parents of Santes Tydfil are very lucky. They've got the oval car park. Most schools that I attend on a regular basis, they're all chocker, parking in residential areas, and it is a nightmare. But I think that the parents need to realise they are putting this at risk, because obviously there's objections coming in from ward councillors, and I don't know whether it's something the head teacher can approach with the parents to say that they potentially stopping a facility, a fantastic facility, which is what I'm sure parents of pupils going to a Welsh medium school would be welcoming, but they need to start taking responsibility for their actions as well. It can't just be down to traffic management and planners.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Scott Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, as the authority's Welsh language champion, I'm overly thrilled to see that this development is coming to obviously one of our flagship Welsh schools, and it's from obviously the design and the concept. It looks absolutely fantastic. And if there's no more comments, I would happily like to move this recommendation.
Okay, well, you beat me to it, asking for somebody to propose. Can I have a second? Yeah, Councillor Michelle, you're right with that? Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, we'll put it to the vote then, yeah?
Yeah. Councillor Preston, you for, against, or abstaining?
For.
Thank you. That's carried, Chair.
Yeah, so as you hear, that's carried. We'll go on to item P25/0146, 6 Alban-Wallace Terrace, Merthyr Tydfil, CF478HU, to consider a report of the Director of Neighbourhood Services, and again it's Gareth.
Getting all the goodies tonight. Right, okay. This is a mid-terrace, three-bedroom property on Albalmoral Terrace. Which is a North Road Road, served by a single access off Bethesda Street, as you can see from the plan in front of you there. Close to a north of the town centre, which can be reached on foot via the public right-of-way that runs from the Law Courts and the Castle Street car parks. You can just about pick it up on the plan there. The application proposes the change of use of a three-bedroom home to a six-bedroom HMO, use class C3 to C4 again, and the residents will share kitchen, lounge, bathroom and the rear garden facilities. They'll be communal, but they'll all have their own private room. The development will be achieved through the internal reconfiguration only, and the only external change would be the provision of a roof like the serves bedroom 4. Now, I'm aware I went at the last one like a bull at a gate because there was a lot to get through, so it might be worth talking through the plans, but yeah. This is existing and proposed ground floor. As you can see, it's all standard living accommodation at the moment, but the intention is to provide 2 bedrooms, which will be towards the front of the property, either side of the front door. Living room and kitchen facilities behind. First floor, typical Valley Terrace configuration as at the moment, 3 bedrooms and a good-sized bathroom. You will get the additional bedrooms there. The bedroom 4 I mentioned, you can see there, would be the 1 bedroom that gets the skylight. I say we got 2 bathrooms going on here, so that's not too bad in terms of a HMO, I suppose. In terms of planning history, the property's got no planning history at all. Have we got any other photos, Dave? Yeah, there we go. Before I get on to that, that one identifies the front of the property. You can't see the rear of the property from Bethesda Terrace because there's sort of sheer weight of greenery that sits at the back of the property. These photographs, I think, are quite useful because they give you an impression of how the street looks, and some of the concerns that have been raised in terms of it being a cul-de-sac street with a fairly small turning head at the head of the street, and the extent of on-street parking that's currently experienced within the street now. Now, in terms of planning history, there's no planning history at all to the property. We've received 2 letters of objection. The key themes have been the parking on the street, as you see it there, is saturated at the moment, and this will only make it worse. The question of the nature of the future occupiers of the HMO has been raised as well. There's again the claim that the existing residents have previous experience antisocial behaviour, and the proposals could make it worse. There's again with this application, there's a remote applicant who would not be able to deal with or quickly any problems that might arise. Waste and recycling is an issue. 6 residents has not been properly addressed. No details of access to and from the property during the renovation works has been provided. In terms of planning policy, well, the property again lies within settlement limits and subject to compliance with the policy criteria. The proposal would be considered acceptable. Physically, there's little in the way of external works that would affect the character and appearance of the area, and whilst property is occupied by non-family households, as we would already have the potential to change the character of an area, it is not evident that allowing this application will result in over-concentration of HMOs in the area. In terms of the impact on residential amenity, it is considered the proposed development would not be significantly different from the existing use as a 3-bedroom dwelling. Whilst the proposal might have the potential to deliver more noise than the existing use would, it's not considered so significant in planning terms that it would justify refusal of planning permission. Noise and antisocial behaviour on the part of residents, should it rise, will be matter for the management company, and should there be any statutory nuisance, environmental health or criminal matter to the police. It's important to remember that this type of disturbance could just as easily or frequently occur in a family home. Also, planning controls focus on the land and not the user of the land. The proposal would not result in any more overlooking or loss of privacy over and above existing levels within the street. Bin and recycling provision would be improved with a dedicated storage facility within the property. There are no objections from environmental health. Ecological enhancement, should members choose to approve the application, will be delivered through the appropriate worded planning condition on the report. And as where parking is concerned, though the street is a narrow parking requirements for the development are the same as for a 3-bedroom house, no objections raised by the head of engineering and highways. There's an incremental gain here in a way, in as much as the development includes bicycle storage, and proximity to the town centre makes the use of sustainable forms of transport more readily available for residents. My apologies if that sounds a little repetitious to what we heard before, but we are dealing with very similar things.
Thank you for that. We have no speakers on this matter, so I'll just go to questions from committee, and it's Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, Chair. In relation to the last remark, yes, similar to what had happened before, only much worse. On the planning application, it states quite clearly on page 22 that it's going to be a 3-bedroom property converted to 6 bedrooms. So my questions will be similar to what happened with 9 Queen's Terrace. And here again, we have a private firm, Taylor Holding Investments Limited, have obviously taken the option of not being present. And that tells you everything. So I'll have to ask the planners, because I presume we've been talking to these individuals representing Taylor Holding Investments Limited, and they've got all the answers to my questions. Number one, for these 6 bedrooms, do we know, or they indicated, what type of tenants they intend to have be rehoused here?
We have no indication at all of the type of tenant.
That's really wonderful. We haven't got a clue then who's going to be put there. 2, how will the property be managed with 6 tenants there? And has already been indicated in the report, this is a street that's had antisocial behaviour issues over time. How will that, when things kick off there, as I've no doubt they will, what management proposals have this Taylor Holding Investments Limited indicated to you that they've got in being?
We haven't received any specific proposals for the management of the property as part of the application, but due to the scale of the HMO being 6 beds, again, it would be subject to the licensing procedure with environmental health.
Right. I'm glad I heard that answer to that question, because I've written to environmental health recently in the last few days, and I was surprised that you don't require a license. I certainly up to, I think it's 5 individuals living there, but I can easily get it, but I thought the answer I was given indicated that it has to be a 3-storey building if there's more than 5 tenants there, but that's not the case, is it, Craig?
Again, I can double check that with environmental health, but like I said, they are two separate processes, and the management isn't a planning consideration.
No, but you'll double check if this requires a license, because if it requires a license, I've no doubt environmental health will be putting in suggesting issues that this firm would have to comply with. But I've always contended, Chair, in these cases where there's license required, it should be part and parcel of the planning application, but that is not how it works. This is a dead-end street. A limited number of properties there, 24, perhaps 25, thereabouts. And clearly, as you can see from the one photograph, I'm a bit surprised that the cars are all parked on the other side, because what I've seen over the years is that they parked right on the other side. Ah, it probably was. I hadn't thought of that at bin day, because you've got to have space there to get a rather large bin lorry through there. And I wouldn't want to be a bin lorry driver, because, as has been indicated by the planner, you get to the turning circle, it's quite narrow, and lo and behold, when you go up there most of the time, there are cars parked there as well. So do the planners, I've heard what's been said, but it clearly is a highway issue, a parking issue there at the moment, not only from residents living there, but residents in Newfound Terrace, which is a few yards down the road. And of course, those individuals who would like to dodge paying a parking fee from the car park just below also park there as well. So as planners, do you accept that there's already a highways problem there?
I think it's been recognised that parking is restricted in that street, and as mentioned in the presentation, it's a narrow carriageway, so it's not a typical street where you can park on both sides. That has to be accepted. I think the point that we've always raised a lot of times with HMOs is that we often have to compare the potential impact, you know, as if it was, you know, a house as well. You know, and a house can be used up to 6 people living together as a single household. In those circumstances, they could all be professionals and they could all have their own car. That's always the kind of the worst case scenario in that situation. In this instance as well, it's worth noting that the property is within walking distance of the town centre, so we would often point out that this is a sustainable location, you know, and you've got good links then to, you know, the bus and train services as well. So it would also be suitable for somebody who isn't reliant on a car as well.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I doubt whether there's going to be 6 professional tenants there. Be perfectly frank with you. If the Strategic Housing Department, the local authority, are able to refer homeless individuals there, that's what's going to happen. Do you accept there'll be a transient population there? People won't be remaining there for months or years on end. There'll be a constant change of residents there. Do you accept that that is a distinct possibility?
Again, I just refer back to the previous response that we've raised before, and that we're assessing the use, not the user. That isn't the material planning consideration.
Yes. Now then, again, on page 25, under residential amenity, just below there, after about the first paragraph, it says there, and I quote, "It is not considered that the proposed 6-bedroom HMO would be significantly different to the existing use as a 3-bedroom residential dwelling." Well, you don't accept, therefore, that things would be any different if a family was living there other than what's proposed here, 6 tenants.
Well, I guess you could quite easily have a family of 4 or 5 people living there, making a lot of noise, causing their own disturbance. That's a behaviour for those residents. You could have 5 or 6 people living in the HMO that get on with their neighbours and don't cause too much nuisance. So it's very difficult to apply that in a planning sense, because we have no control over the behaviour of those occupants. Hence, it's not often something that we can control in our considerations, and then that falls then for it to be a police or environmental health matter who have controls over that.
I don't think I've got any more questions yet.
Have we any further questions? No? Go to comments. Councillor Clew-Jones.
Here we are again, Chair. This is a... I would be very interested to know if this company has purchased the property, because I've been up there today and the for sale sign is still there. So I can only conclude that so far the property hasn't been purchased. As I've asked in my questioning, this is a dead-end road which has got a severe parking problem. Any large vehicles there have difficulty getting up and down this road most times in the day. So there's an issue there. We don't know who the tenants are going to be. I've got a deep suspicion, or they're likely to be, and as a result of that, there will be a constant issue with a constant change of residents, tenants, who will, by the sound of it, only be there for a matter of a few weeks or a few months until they get permanent accommodation. Because as far as the housing department is concerned, these are regarded as being utilised for those who are homeless with a view to obtaining permanent accommodation. Hence the problem with it being a transient population. We have got no idea, because nobody's availed themselves to be asked the question, how the property was going to be managed. As I said in the previous application, when things happen here, and they are extremely likely to happen, they happen on a Friday night, a Saturday night, or a Sunday. And what we've experienced as council members is getting in touch with the landlord, try and sort things over when things are happening in the weekend, is usually an impossibility. And it's left to the local police, who are already stretched to deal with the issue. I totally disagree with the planner's comments there, that this will not change the character and the community cohesion of the area. I will argue that that definitely will happen with the constant change of tenants that are likely to be living here. Clearly, there are residents there who are unhappy about what is proposed, and particularly on the highways grounds, and the fact that the character of the area, which up until now has remained with families either purchasing them or renting them. And one thing I've noticed, because it answers the point that Councillor Scott Thomas was making, is that there will be residents, Newfound Terrace Park in there, but there's a one Airbnb property in the area. So if this is given planning approval, you'll have a HMO within a matter of yards of an existing Airbnb. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further comments? Can we have a proposer? Sorry, yeah. Sorry, Declan, you just popped up late.
I pressed it late. I do apologise. It's just really quickly. To be honest, here we go again. As Clive said, frustrating for everyone. Frustrating for the elected members who know their areas like the back of their hands and know what's best for an area, because they live it day in, day out. Frustrating for you guys as well. You believe when you're writing these reports that you're sticking to plan and law and doing your job. I don't know where we go from here, to be honest, because in all probability this will probably get turned down, then go to PEDU. I don't know where we are, to be honest, as a planning committee. And that's it. Frustration. Thank you.
Okay. Can we, there's no further comments. Can we have a proposer, please? And it's only just to further the...
I'll propose it.
Thank you, Clive. And seconded, Clive? Oh, Lee will second it. Okay. Can I take it to the vote, please?
Councillor Preston, are you for, against or abstaining? Councillor Preston?
Against.
Thank you. That's not carried, Chair.
And this hasn't been carried, so I'll hand you back to Geraint.
So we're in the same position as we were with the first item before committee. councillors have decided not to accept officer's recommendation, so you need to determine now what the reasons for refusal are and let me know what they are, and then we will take that to the vote.
Councillor Kyne-Jones.
Well, in looking at the report and listening to the comments, etc., I'd like to move that the true objection should be on highway grounds, inadequate parking and highway facilities there.
So, contrary to policy SW11.
Correct.
Yes.
And that if this is approved, the property will change the character of the area and community cohesion.
Okay. Any other councillor have any other reasons for refusal? Or no? Councillor Scott Thomas?
Yeah, Councillor Scott Thomas.
Yes, Chair, thank you. So just for clarity, the two reasons that we are using for this proposal are identical to the previous HMO proposal that we spoke about. Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Preston, anything to add? You don't need to.
No.
No, thank you. So we have two reasons for refusal. The one is highway safety and parking, contrary to policy SW11, and the one is affecting the community as per the first one. And character, yeah, of the area. Thank you. So if we could take that to the vote then, those being the two reasons for refusal. Councillor Preston, for, against or abstaining? Councillor Preston?
For.
Thank you. That's carried.
And that's carried, thank you. We'll go on to, we've had the objections why we done it, yes. We go to item 6, information reports. So that's dealt with. 7, any other business deemed urgent by the chair. I have none. And Nostar.